Napoleon Hill interviewed over 500 of the wealthiest people in American history. And what he found was not what anyone expected. The secret to their success had almost nothing to do with education, connections, or even hard work in the traditional sense. It was something far simpler and far more uncomfortable. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover the core lessons from one of the best-selling books of all time, Think and Grow Rich. Published in 1937, this book has influenced more self-made millionaires than any other single text in history. But here is the thing most people miss: this book is not really about money. The true lesson hidden inside its pages is something most readers completely overlook. Stay with us, because that insight changes everything. Napoleon Hill spent over 20 years researching this book. He began in 1908 when steel magnate Andrew Carnegie gave him a challenge: interview the most successful people in America and find out what made them different. Carnegie believed there was a formula for success that anyone could learn. Hill took him up on it. Over the following 2 decades, Hill sat down with Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, John D. Rockefeller, Theodore Roosevelt, and hundreds of others. What he discovered became the foundation of Think and Grow Rich. The book was published during the Great Depression, a time when millions of Americans had lost everything. It sold over 1 million copies within the first year. Today, estimates place total sales at over 100 million copies worldwide. It consistently appears on lists of the most influential business books ever written. That is not an accident. The ideas inside it work, but only if you understand what Hill was actually saying. The first and most fundamental lesson Hill teaches is what he calls the power of desire. Not a wish, not a hope, but a burning, obsessive desire. Hill makes a clear distinction here. He argues that most people want things vaguely. They say they want to be rich, but they have no specific number in mind, no deadline, and no real plan. Hill says this is the difference between a dream and a goal. He describes desire as the starting point of all achievement, the first step in the philosophy of success. He even gives a specific exercise. Write down exactly how much money you want. Write down exactly what you will give in return for it. Write down a specific date by which you intend to have it. Read that statement aloud twice a day, every day. This is not motivational fluff. Hill is describing a process of mental conditioning that modern neuroscience now confirms works by forcing your brain to prioritize specific information in your environment. The second major lesson involves faith. Hill defines faith not in a religious sense, but as a state of mind, a deep, unshakable belief that what you want is already on its way to you. He argues that your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between a real experience and one that is vividly imagined. When you combine desire with faith, you begin to behave differently. You make different decisions. You notice different opportunities. You attract different people. But here is what nobody talks about when they discuss this book. Hill was not describing magic. He was describing psychology. The mechanism behind faith is confidence, and confidence changes behavior in measurable ways. Studies in behavioral psychology consistently show that people who believe they will succeed persist longer, take more calculated risks, and recover faster from failure. Hill understood this intuitively decades before the research existed to support it. The third lesson is the mastermind principle. Hill defines a mastermind as an alliance of 2 or more people working in perfect harmony toward a definite purpose. He observed this pattern in every major success story he studied. Carnegie had his inner circle. Ford had his. Edison had his. No great achievement in history was accomplished entirely alone. Hill argues that when 2 minds work together in harmony, they create a third invisible force, a combined intelligence greater than either person alone. This is not a vague metaphor. Think about what actually happens in a mastermind group. You gain access to knowledge you did not have. You gain accountability. You gain perspectives that challenge your blind spots. You gain emotional support during difficult periods. Modern research on collaboration confirms what Hill observed: diverse, aligned teams consistently outperform individuals on complex problems. The mastermind principle is one of the most practical and immediately actionable ideas in the entire book. The fourth lesson is specialized knowledge. Hill distinguishes between general knowledge and specialized knowledge. He argues that general knowledge, no matter how great, is of little value unless it is organized and applied toward a definite purpose. He points to the example of Henry Ford, who famously had very little formal education. Ford did not need to know everything. He needed to know one thing extremely well, and he needed to surround himself with people who knew the things he did not. This is a profound reframe of how most people think about success. The education system teaches us to accumulate general knowledge. Hill says that is the wrong approach entirely. Find one area. Go deep. Become the person others need to come to. This lesson is arguably more relevant today than it was in 1937, in an economy that increasingly rewards depth of expertise over breadth of information. The fifth lesson is imagination, specifically what Hill calls synthetic imagination versus creative imagination. Synthetic imagination takes existing ideas and combines them in new ways. Creative imagination is the source of genuinely original ideas. Hill argues that most successful innovation comes from synthetic imagination. You do not need to invent something from nothing. You need to see connections that others have missed. Every major product category disruption in the last decade follows this pattern exactly. The sixth lesson is organized planning. Hill is direct about this. Desire without a plan is fantasy. He outlines a process for building a practical, step-by-step plan and working it with a mastermind group. He also addresses failure directly, which most people skip over. Hill says temporary defeat is not failure. Most great fortunes were built on the foundation of failures that taught the person exactly what needed to change. He documents case after case of entrepreneurs who failed multiple times before succeeding dramatically. What separates the people who ultimately succeed from those who do not is not talent or luck. It is what Hill calls persistence. This is the seventh and arguably most important lesson in the book. Hill devotes an entire chapter to it. He argues that persistence is to the character of a person what carbon is to steel, the element that transforms something ordinary into something extraordinary. He identifies four characteristics that define persistence: a definite purpose backed by burning desire, a definite plan, a mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences, and a friendly alliance with those who encourage you. Here is what makes this list remarkable. Every item on it is entirely within your control. Not your background, not your resources, not the economy. Just your mindset, your plan, your environment, and your relationships. The eighth lesson is the subconscious mind, and this is where Hill gets most misunderstood. He argues that you can plant specific desires into your subconscious through repetition and emotional intensity. Modern psychology calls this priming and self-affirmation. The subconscious mind processes information continuously, and when you feed it a clear, emotionally charged picture of what you want, it begins solving for that outcome automatically. This is why successful people often describe feeling pulled toward opportunities rather than having to force their way to them. The deepest insight in Think and Grow Rich is this: the limitations most people live with are not external. They are manufactured internally. Hill calls this the ghost of fear, and he argues it is the single greatest enemy of success. Fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, fear of loss of love, fear of old age, fear of death. He says these six fears are responsible for more human failure than any economic condition or external obstacle ever created. Think and Grow Rich is not a book about getting rich. It is a book about getting clear. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Book Notes Daily for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.